We are now broadcasting live over the interwebs. Welcome to Reinventing the Tattoo Live from Red Tree Tattoo / True Tubes. Definitely want to thank Derb Morrison for the kind hospitality. And yeah, this is Machines, Magnetism,
and Mayhem
Fantastic.
Once again.
And I do want to thank, give me 1 second here while this is beaming out and making sure that this is working. I'd like to thank Ink Shop Guard. They are an insurance company that caters to the tattoo world. I believe it's inkshopguard.com. And yeah, then, and of course, GuyAitchison.com. Guy Aitchison is the founder of Reinventing the Tattoo. Tattoo Now handles all of your computer geek needs for tattooers, and then raw pigments. And yeah, we've got samples here. And awesome. So I'm going to just pass this right off to Tony as the host. He's been doing a podcast pretty regularly, about once a month with machine builders. And we've got some special guests up here and tonight, and who knows where this morning, and who knows where it's going to go. Okay, take it away, Tony.
Good morning, everybody. I am Tony Urbanek. I host a podcast with my partner, Greg DiGiacento. It's a last minute thing. So we're coming live from Red Tree. We usually talk about machines, all tattoo machines, history, the mayhem behind our lives, being father. Good morning, everybody. I am Tony Urbanek. I host
Take it away, Tony.
All
Good morning, everybody.
History, tattoo machines, the mayhem behind our lives, the mayhem behind our lives. Being,
how about we stop that? Okay, you're good.
Something happened. Are we?
Yeah, you're all good.
We're back. We're like.
Yeah. I'm not going to play you over the loudspeakers while you're actually doing it.
Thank you. Okay. Where was I? Anyhow, we're live at Red Tree, and I didn't have a machine builder to bring in. I wanted to do something a little different today, so I had a conversation with a gentleman last night that kind of struck the magnetism and mayhem side of the business. I mean, we're all tattoo artists here, so we do use machines, so we'll incorporate that. But I thought it would be a prime opportunity to bring this young man up and, you know, just talk about where we're at and differences in his life. And it's Jeremy Brown, and he works at the 1807 Collective.
Yes.
You want to go ahead and introduce yourself?
How you guys doing? My name is Jeremy Brown. I own 1807 Art Collective in Elyria, Ohio. Here to talk, you know, with these fine gentlemen here, you know, shoot shit and bring you guys something different.
Right on. So we figured we'd really put you in the hot seat, and I know this guy, and a couple people know who he is. It's Jesse Smith. That needs no introduction, but go ahead. Let's let people know.
My name is Jesse Smith, and I tattoo cartoons.
Cartoons it is. So, all right. So you want to tell us about your style and what you're into, types of machines you use, the history.
Yeah,
just,
for sure.
We'll get it moving. It's lax, man. So
yeah,
you just be you.
I feel like my main style I really like to push into is black and gray. I really like realism, kind of pushing surrealism, trying to see how far I can get to it. I'm really lately been kind of pushing styles, doing multiple styles, kind of incorporating some color elements into it, little cartoons and such. You know what I mean? Just trying to make something little fresh.
Stepping into my territory.
Well, that's why I'm doing that seminar. Yeah,
Gotta get the tricks.
Sure. Yeah. You know, I'm trying to keep pushing, trying to keep things relevant, keep things fresh, and just keep challenging myself. And more importantly, you know what I mean? I don't want to feel like we're, you know, yesterday we spoke about, you know, you get into that feeling of repetition, either black and gray or comfort doing it. You know, you only grow so much being comfortable, so I still gotta keep pushing myself to be yeah, keep pushing myself to be uncomfortable. But as far as machine goes, I mean,
You're a rotary guy, right? Mainly?
Yeah, I use rotary.
Do you line with coils at all, or you stick mainly with just?
Well, I did use coils still for a while. I still have my orphan irons I used for, you know, quite some time. And then I went through a lot of different rotaries, trying out different machines. I really didn't find one that had a similar feel to coils until I tried Carson's new machine. He came with that Numa 4.
Okay.
And that's a whole different machine, I feel like, than the rest of the rotaries. Just the way that the drive system's set up. And he has the different cams for like the amount of the skin, like the duty cycle, I guess you would call it.
Stroke and stuff.
Well, it's still 4.2 stroke, but like you can put a 20% cam,
Huh.
and then there's a 28% cam. I think a 33 and 40. Don't quote me on those exact numbers, but there's 4 different cams. 40 more for like blending soft black and grays, and then 20 would be for your lining and solid saturation. But I feel that it almost has that that like the little flex from when you hit an
Yeah, the give.
Yeah, you almost feel that, and it almost has a similar feel to when you're tattooing, you run a line, and the way that it puts the ink in is to me similar to a coil. So I've kind of been using that full force lately.
Right on.
Really trying to get a good hang on it, using different cams and just seeing what the full capabilities are.
Right on. Jess, you started using, when you started your career, you messed around with coils, correct?
Yeah, I mean, when I started tattooing, if you used a rotary machine, you were a turd.
Yeah.
I remember seeing a guy use a rotary machine, and he was a good tattoo artist. And I was in my mind, it was just like, it was one of those psychological things. I was just like, what the hell is this guy doing, man? Who the hell does he think he is? But eventually, I think I started using swash drives first.
Yeah, I still use a swash for black and gray. I love that thing.
Yeah, it's cool. It's a little machine like
Yeah,
that.
it's light. Yeah.
And we're using those for a little bit, and then I got sponsored by Neotat.
Okay.
And it was like, as soon as I got sponsored by Neotat, it was 100% rotary past that point. They were heavy enough to kind of like, so you don't have to actually apply pressure when you're tattooing. It's like the weight is enough.
Right.
But yeah, then ever since then, and I went over to FK Irons, and now I'm using the Flux and the XO. And yeah, I mean, I haven't noticed much difference. There was one time, because I was hearing a lot of people about the lining with the coil.
With the coil.
So I remember I lined the whole side of this guy's chest with a coil, and then I lined it with a rotary, and then saw how it healed up, and they both healed up the same. They both took me the same amount of time. So from that point on, I just stuck with rotaries. So, but it always feels good to hear someone using one of them coils.
Yeah.
I think Kenny was using one over at DC convention. I had my Apple Watch, and the Apple Watch lets you know when there's too much noise around. So I held it up to his tattoo machine. It was like, long-term, exposure to this audible of sound will reduce your hearing ability or something. And that is just funny. I'm definitely missing some octaves in my left ear from tattooing.
Definitely hear the nostalgia when you hear that, though.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, who is it?
Sure.
You smile, you're looking like,
Sure.
you're like, who's got that? Even when I come to your shop and seeing, what you got, your collection. But you see those machines, man. That's the dedication. That's the tradition. I mean, there's so much. Yeah,
It's history, but it's what gets you from A to B that works. It could be sticks, and we talk about this a lot. It doesn't matter. Like there's no bias really to me. Because I use both, and I've experimented with different types, and I see where guys settle. And the way I tattoo, the machines that I use work for me. So why change that formula? And as you said, to your point, you get comfortable in doing certain things. Yeah, you have to push outside of that, but I've done that so many times through my career that it's actually set me back. So I revert back to what works for me, and that's what works for me. So
of course.
And what works for me doesn't necessarily work for somebody else. So I can't criticize that. That's my viewpoint on that. But
I think there's also a psychological element. At least there was with me. So when I first started tattooing, I was doing new school from day one. And of course, I had all these traditional artists that were like, you're stupid. This shit won't hold up. You need to do this. And they were just like hardcore coil dudes. And I was just like, I just want to separate myself from these assholes, And of course, there's assholes and everything, but those were the ones who gave me the most shit when I was coming up. And then, so I went to coil. And then after I got I went to rotary. After I got into rotary, of course, I hang out with Kenny and I hang out with all these other traditional guys that I absolutely love. And once I didn't have these assholes anymore, I don't look at coil machines like I used to.
right.
But it's like this, I was prejudiced on some sort of level. It's like people who use these machines were mean to me. Therefore, I don't want to be a part of those machines.
Right.
And then rotaries gave me an opportunity to kind of step away from those types of people. Just like, yeah, you guys keep the machines. But, once again, it's just like any prejudgment. There's a full spectrum of humans behind coil machines and rotary machines. And I think it happens the other way too. It's like people who are loyal to the coil, look at people who are using rotary machines and they have this thought about who that human is just based off of the machine that they're using.
About the tool you use.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
makes no sense. It's just a
Yeah.
tool to get from A to B.
Yeah, and it's like, you know, someone who drives a Tesla versus a diesel, you know, or something like that. It's like you just kind of get this image in your head of what type of person that is, you know, based off of all the things that you've learned in the past. You know, last person that drove a Tesla was whatever, you know, a wokester who hated me because I had a whatever Make America Great Again hat. or
You
whatever,
drive a
know?
Tesla?
I do drive a Tesla.
Do you seriously?
Yeah, well, I just bought one.
Oh, yeah.
But you know, but I get those thoughts too. Like I remember when I was seeing someone drive a Prius, you just get this thought in your mind of what type of human that is, just based off of that. But you know, as we all know, there's assholes who drive Priuses and there's assholes who drive diesel trucks.
Yeah.
It's just a prejudgment.
Yeah, preconceived. Yeah.
So getting back to like, let me think here. We were talking about your history and how you got into it yesterday. We had a conversation after hours about your upbringing with like an old school shop and how that inspired you to move forward and change and grow. And
Yeah, the mentality where I grew up, it was all old school bikers. This guy brought tattooing from New Jersey back in the 60s, late 60s, early 70s, and set up shop. And his family tree stemmed from pretty much everybody where I was at. You know, all the older guys that were out there, they all stemmed from him. You know, so it was all biker mentality. It was acetate stencils. He still had, you know, binders full of them. You know, you flip through and pick one out.
That
you still
stuff's cool,
tattoo on
man.
it. Pictures of him with, you know, eating a sandwich, tattoo gun in one hand, cigarette smoking over there. It's in the station, you know, he's been tattooing since the 60s, you know. So everything from around there was, you know, use coils, you do this, you know, whatever walks in the door, you do, you know, and it was real cut and dry, you know, it was no growth, you know, and like I was talking to him about, I was looking at social media and seeing guys like you know, read these magazines, read books, and go to Hell City, and I'm like, man, look at these guys are doing, you know, you see Neotat and all that coming out early. And I'm like, well, these rotaries, they got to be doing something. You know, all these guys are doing this fantastic work with them. They have to, you know, have to be somewhat better, right? Like, I mean, there's something to it. Maybe not better, but, you know, at least that's another way of doing things. And now with cartridges, as it came forward, it is easier. You know, you can use one machine, and if you have a machine that you like that works for you, you can use that machine for however many needle configurations you need. You don't have to set up 4 or 5 machines anymore. You know,
streamline and easy.
yeah, and it simplifies things and makes it easier for us. But like growing up, trying to reach for things like that could make life better or easier, it was just completely shut down. You know, going to conventions, like, why would you do that? You know, you're not going to grow.
Pre-made needles. I remember when
That was mind blowing.
Remember, I used to use when I buy pre-made needles, people would be like, "Oh, you're a fucking pussy. You need to make your own."
Yeah.
Needles. And I mean, I did. I made my own needles for 10 years, and I just like, man, I don't have time for this shit, you know. And now it's like nobody makes their own needles anymore, you know.
It's time.
Yeah.
It's
Right.
more efficient. Like we would hire, well, I wouldn't hire, but you get the apprentices and we'd teach them how to make needles. And they would have to come in 2 hours early. You group the loose needles. We'd buy them from National or Spalding. You have to group them up. You have to solder them, the group together, and then you have to jig them onto the bar. Then you have to scrub them. Then you had to bag them. Then you had to autoclave them. And at the time, we had 5 guys. Each of the 5 guys, like different groupings. And man, we punished these apprentices, dude. Like every day, we'd want fresh ones.
You tattooed, you know, 10 tattoos an artist, you know, back then.
That's a lot of needles.
Bangers, yeah.
And so that's
Yeah.
But like Jesse's saying, I remember when things switched over, and I came from Spalding was selling pre-made on the bar needles.
Sure, yeah.
But I mean, we were poor, so we figured we'd make them ourselves to shave money at the time. Shave, not save, shave money off of the cost.
Yeah.
Let me clarify that so I don't sound like I'm slurring. But that being said, and you're talking about the evolution of cartridges, and being able to swap back and forth through groupings, which is much more efficient than a coil swap. And yes, it's less space and less aggravation. How do you guys feel about quality control at this point of the game? Because I know when I first switched to, and I'm not going to say specific company names, but I've tried several different companies throughout the years. Different needles just weren't the same, and they weren't labeled correct. And it just seems like there's not enough quality control. So if you buy, 50 needles in a box, out of those 50, and I don't know how many guys still know what an eye loop is, but I still eye loop my needles. Yeah. Out of those 50, there's probably 20 that were shit.
Yeah.
So.
What I would be interested in knowing those brands, to be honest. I mean, I think it's
Oh, I
important.
can't.
Just tell
Not
me,
live,
I'll
brother.
say it, dude. I think it's important.